are in Keswick Museum. Let's get inside. So this is what the looks inside of the museum.
Downstairs, there's some toilets. Inside the door of the cafe, just on the left-hand side, there's
Where does it say?
just and then you get what's it called? The letters. Yes, next word. Yes.
This guy.
So if you want to go to the location, it's because there was a lot of mining around here. So not coal, but lead and copper and silver.
All right.
And so lots of people came to live here because of that. So that was starting off in the 1600s and right through till the 1900s when the mining all stopped.
Right.
And at that time, the railway came to Keswick and that brought the tourists in.
Yeah.
So it started to become a tourist town quite early.
Yeah.
And so what happened then was the wealthy, because only wealthy people could afford to go on holiday, they all used to come on the train, and all of the houses that are built, I'm not sure where you're staying, but there's a lot of houses that are built terraced.
We're staying in the golf club.
You're staying in the golf club?
Yeah.
All right. Is this the golf club at
The what's that?
It's in it's not far from here. It's 5 minutes.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the all of the houses that are over this far side of the town, that are quite big houses, they're tall and thin. They've got no gardens, just a little yard at the back. And all of those houses were built as boarding houses for people to come and stay. So it became very busy quite early on, and it still is very busy. So this sort of tells you a little bit about that history.
Yeah.
One of the things the museum is famous for is these stones here. So this is a musical instrument made out of slate, and the mountain that's just behind us, the one that's sort of just up here, it's made of slate, and round the back of the mountain, there's this particular very hard slate.
Wow.
And so it has a musical quality.
Wow.
So you can play it.
Oh my God. Wow.
So it used to go out on tour. These are the men that used to take it out, and they were the Richardson family.
They carry this all the way.
They used to take it. These are the boxes they used to put it in.
Oh, I see.
So
So
these are
they're
some of
all
the boxes,
assembled.
and they would take it on the train.
Yeah.
And it actually played at Buckingham Palace for Queen Victoria.
Oh.
It was very popular, and they went all around the country playing this. So it was the original rock and steel band. So originally it was just the stones, and then they added the steel and the bells. So it just gives another. So I wish I could play it properly. But we've got somebody coming in who's going to play Christmas carols on it.
Wow.
Not today, no. A bit nearer to Christmas. Somebody's going to come in and play.
Oh, we should
So,
Wow.
but there was a. That wasn't the first. We call it the musical stones.
Musical stones.
This was the
Wow.
first one. And this was made in 1785.
And there's
And there were
wow.
already tourists coming to Keswick then. And this man, Peter Crossway, he had a museum in Keswick. Not here, but at the other end of town.
Yeah.
And he used to have this set up outside his museum, and he would play it to encourage people to come in.
Wow.
So this is a much smaller version, but it seems, and they were the original meters that he used. And look, there's like a double one, so you would have twisted it like this.
Yeah.
And no, it's really. It was,
Wow.
I expect it was quite noisy. So yeah, that was one of the things that brought everybody into Keswick. And along with, up on the wall at the back there's a big map. Can you see it? It's,
Right, over there.
Yeah, and this used to lie flat. And because we didn't have maps, really, people didn't have maps in those days.
Wow.
So these maps, this was made in 1825. So this was made and it lay flat, and people could walk around it and see what the Lake District looked like, because you couldn't see it from the air like you can now. And so you could see what it looked like and where all the mountains were. So in actual fact, as you're looking at it now, because of the way we've got it now, Derwentwater, the word Derwentwater, which is where we are, Keswick is upside down, because, you know, it would be flat.
That's amazing.
So now we have the equivalent of that on here. So this is just an electronic version, so that you can see how this area evolved over the centuries.
Wow.
So this tells you all about the area, and so, you know, we've gone from that to this.
And now we have Google Earth.
And then we have all the other things.
Yes, Keswick is known for pencil like that.
Oh yes. Well, the other thing that was found here, when they started the mining, down the bottom of the Borrowdale Valley. So if you think Keswick's here, this is Derwentwater.
Yeah.
And there's a valley that goes down here, and when you get to the bottom of the lake, they found graphite, which is what you make pencils out of. And it's locally called plumbago, that's its name. And it was so expensive that they used to guard the mine, because it wasn't used for pencils originally. It was used to make cannonballs, but not to make the actual ball, but to be the mould to put the iron in, because it made really smooth cannonballs. So that was the original reason for it. And then they found out that you could use it for pencils. So there's a little bit about the pencils here. The pencils were continuously made in Keswick until not many years ago, probably about 15 years ago. Then there still is a Cumberland Pencil Company, but they are actually based now in Workington, which is on the west coast near the sea, because they've gone into a modern factory. But there still is, the factory still exists, and it's being used for other things now, like events and things. And we still do have a pencil museum down the other end of town that is specifically about pencils and nothing else. But it tells you all about it, because they still make coloured pencils, and the Derwent pencils are the most famous. You see them all over the country, all over the world. They're very famous pencils and crayons, and anybody who makes things, produces artwork out of crayons, and there are a lot of people that do, would only use the Derwent ones because they're so good. So this is what it looked like when it came out of the ground, and then they made it into they melted it and made it into the solid, which is what they used. And of course, when you see the inside of a pencil, but you don't get graphite in pencils now. I think you get something else.
Lead, I think.
Well, no.
Oh no, it's just.
Actually, because it is actually lead, even though it's called graphite, it's slightly different. But I don't think they use, because lead's poison.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't use it now, I don't think. So yeah, it's an interesting history.
It is.
As to why it's
Wow.
Yes. And the other thing that we made were bobbins. So because of the river that runs through Keswick, called the River Greta. This is a picture of the river here, and it's just if you've walked down from the town, you've walked over the River Greta. And that had loads of mills by the side, water mills, and we had lots of trees. So we used to make wooden bobbins like these, and they were used in the textile industry in Lancashire. So there was a big trade, and there were a lot of bobbin mills. There is only one bobbin mill in Cumbria now, so that's the whole of the county, and that's in the south of Cumbria, and it's run by English Heritage, and it's called Stott Park Bobbin Mill, and they still make bobbins there, but only not commercially, just to sell in the shop and to show people. It's open to visitors. But you know, when you think about these, you know, I do sewing, and I still have some of these original wooden bobbins, but were used for that.
That's cute.
Yeah, and what they would do is, in the woodland, they would chop the branches down low. They would never allow the tree to grow up with the trunk. It would always be at the bottom, and they would cut the branches off when they got to that sort of size as they grew up. And because they came from the bottom, they grew up really straight. That's what they called it. And so you can still see examples of coppiced trees in woodland now, because once they've been coppiced and they haven't had a trunk, they never grow a trunk. They just keep coming up from the bottom. And yeah, so yeah, lots of reasons why Keswick is here.
Yeah, so it's historical.
Yeah. So we've got whole mixtures. We've got 4 different things here, really. We had on this left-hand side there was a man called James Durden, and he lived near to Keswick, and he was quite a well-known artist in the 1930s and the 40s, and his main work was doing book jackets, like, you know, the dust covers on books. He would illustrate those, and he would illustrate journals and magazines, but he loved doing big artwork. And this is his daughter, Betty, and we've got quite a lot of his work here. It was given to the museum, and this is the biggest piece of artwork we have. And you know, the style is very 1930s. So this one is a Betty as well. And he also liked doing the one down the bottom. Is that, you know, like a summery scene, and that's the sort of things that he liked to paint. And so we'd had a bigger exhibition of his work here, and his daughter, because she was an artist as well. But some of it's gone because we've got another exhibition, so we've left some of it. That's James Durden. Then the other thing that Keswick is really building and artwork called Arts and Crafts Movement, and it was all natural leaves and flowers and things like that, and all of the houses, and there was quite a lot of houses built in that era in the Keswick area, and actually in the whole of the Lake District, these arts and crafts style houses, and even the museum is that same sort of style of very pointed roofs. And so in Keswick, the local vicar, who actually happened to be one of the founders of the National Trust as well. I don't think he did much on the vicar line. He was always busy doing other things. He decided that he would start this metalwork school here in Keswick for the. And you know, these great big, they call them chargers, but you would never put food on them, but you would just hang them on your wall.
That's display,
Yes, just for display. But yeah, they're
very beautiful.
Yeah, so this was the man. This was Canon Rawson, and he was the vicar. So his wife, and him and his wife started this in Keswick, and the men used to go in the evening to evening. It's like early evening classes, and that building there is actually the building where that still exists where they did it, and that was specially built for them, and that's down. Sadly, I have to say it's right next door to the Premier Inn, because nobody's too happy about the Premier Inn. But it's right next door to the Premier Inn, right down by the river, and that's now a restaurant. But his linen work as well, doing embroidery. So they started. So the ladies seemed to do that, and the men were doing all the silver work. It became, instead of it just being like evening classes, it became an industry in itself, because it got so popular, and everybody, it was like the IKEA of its day. Everybody wanted to have it in their houses. So so they had a whole diverse things that they made. So that was quite famous for that. And then the other 2 things he wrote it. You know, in what date was it he wrote it? And she looks quite formidable, doesn't she? And I think the reason is she went down to London when she was quite young and became a journalist, and she got paid. And you know, when you consider that women didn't do that sort of thing, it would be a real man's world. And she wrote. So it's the same period of Charles Dickens, when Charles Dickens wrote all his books. She was down in London as a journalist. She worked for Charles Dickens. She was quite controversial, because it seems now they seem to think she was a lesbian, which would also be definitely taboo in those days. So yes, she sort of made quite a name for herself, and she was just brought up. I think she was a vicar's daughter.
Is that her typewriter?
It isn't. It's one of our typewriters that we just have out, and people can learn.
We used to press
Wish upon the star of the tree. Colorful one, nice. This is good idea, you know. Lavender into the cotton.